Thank you, Mr. Mavani. Now, it is my honor to introduce Mr. Jayant Sinha, a distinguished Member of Parliament and former Minister of State for Finance and Civil Aviation. Currently, he chairs the Standing Committee on Finance and serves on the Public Accounts Committee. Mr. Sinha has been elected twice to the Lok Sabha with significant majorities. His prior experience includes leadership roles at McKinsey, Umidyar Network, and Courage Capital, showcasing his expertise in business and investment management. Beyond politics and business, Mr. Sinha is an advisor to India's international movement to unite nations, reflecting his commitment to global unity. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Jayant Sinha.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction, and let me first thank Siddharth and the entire team that's been organizing the Oxford India Forum. I'm told that this is the first time this forum has been organized, but I think it's doing splendidly. We've had wonderful guests and a very large turnout, so I'm very excited to be here to talk to you a little bit about climate change. But first, a pitch for Oxford. Now, of course, we've had great alumni here, great scientists, fantastic physicians, fantastic medical doctors. But I must tell you that from childhood, I have been an incredible fan of J.R.R. Tolkien. So for me to come to Oxford and to come to Tolkien's home is the best gift that you could bestow on me. So thank you very much for inviting me here. Now, as I was just telling Professor Allen, I flew in this morning from Delhi. And of course, as you know, I'm going to talk about climate change and net zero. And I must tell you that when I came from Delhi, it was 45 degrees, and I could feel like I could really talk about global warming. But when I got here and I got off the plane, I found it was 14 degrees centigrade. And I know all of you, when I start talking about global warming, you're going to say, what global warming? It's so chilly here today. And friends, that's what makes this discussion on climate change and global warming so difficult. I will get into it in some detail, but you must understand that among the problems that humanity confronts, this is one of the most difficult ones. And the difference between Delhi at 45 degrees and Oxford at 14 degrees is part of it. There are really three reasons why this is such a wicked problem. Number one, there's enormous variability. So Delhi is at 45, Oxford is at 14. And so it's very difficult to separate out what is natural variability from what the trends are. Number two, it's a long-term problem. So anybody who's freezing in the winter is going to say, well, what do I care about global warming? What's going to happen 50 years from now, 30 years from now? How does that matter? But it does matter, and it is affecting us today. So it's a long-term trend, so we tend to ignore it because we are only worried about who's going to win the IPL match today or who's going to win in the T20 World Cup. So we tend to ignore these longer-term problems. And number three, and which is what makes it so fiendishly complicated, is that it is a global problem. And we're not used to politically, and I know a little bit about this, we're not used to politically thinking about poor people in Bangladesh or poor people in sub-Saharan Africa or poor people in India, because everybody is worried about what's going to happen to my taxes here in the city of Oxford. So politics is local. Politics is personal. Politics is not global. And when you're confronted with a global problem, our political systems, the way in which we work together, the policy responses become very difficult to happen. That's why climate change is such a difficult problem. But if we can have the presentation, is that going to come up now? Sorry. There you go. The good news, and I want to thank Professor Allen for highlighting this earlier, is that there is a path forward. Even as this is such a difficult problem, net zero actually for humanity is net positive. It is net positive. It is, in fact, the development path we must follow. And so rather than thinking about net zero as something that's negative for us, we need to understand it's actually very, very positive for us. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Now, let's understand that because of net zero, and I say this as an engineer, we have an opportunity to invest trillions of dollars. Professor Allen spoke about carbon capture. Sanjay talked about electric mobility. We have incredible investment opportunities. Trillions of dollars are going to flow in this. All of you who are here from the business school or engineers, scientists, entrepreneurs, this is the story of your life. Trillions of dollars are going to flow into it. And they're required. We need it because of climate change. And for India as well, this is the path forward. Net zero development should be the path forward for India. And if we all get together and understand why this is so positive for us, why this is so important for us, you will immediately begin to understand that net zero development is the path forward for the planet. Now, I know right after this is lunch. I'm sure many of you are already thinking, am I going to eat this sandwich or that sandwich? So I'm a former McKinsey consultant, so please excuse the charts. So I'll try and get through the charts quickly. And I want to leave a little bit of time for questions and whatever might be on your mind. So let me go through the charts quickly, if you don't mind. But let's recognize that global warming is accelerating. Global warming is accelerating. What was happening relatively slowly in the past is now speeding up. And that's why we have all these extreme weather events, all this heat wave, all of the stuff that's happening. India is badly, badly hit by all of this. It's happening now. We are seeing cyclones that we never saw before in Mumbai. We are already sustaining massive damage as a result of all of this. And the heat waves. I'm just coming from Delhi. It's 45 degrees. It's like a furnace out. And these heat waves have been going on and on and on in South Asia. And the prediction of climate scientists like Professor Allen and others is that northern India will have maximum temperatures of mid-50s. Now, I know at 14 or 15 degrees centigrade, you can't even conceive of mid-50s. But trust me, it's very unpleasant. Everybody needs air conditioning, otherwise you cannot survive. How many of you read Ministry for the Future? Anyone? Ministry for the Future? You must read it. It's a wonderful book. It's about what climate change will do to us by the 2030s. Fantastic book, author is Kim Stanley Robinson. But let me tell you, it starts with a heat wave in North India that kills millions of people. It's worse than COVID and the pandemic. So these are very real, lethal dangers that we are confronting right now. There are other things that are happening where we are not paying attention. How many of you spend too much time worrying about what's happening in the Antarctica? What's the rise of, seawater there, temperatures there, and what is that doing to the various glaciers of the Antarctica? Does anyone worry about this? But we should. Because the Antarctica is the refrigerator for the planet. And when that refrigerator starts to warm up, we need to get really worried about what's going on. And the warming in Antarctica is happening much faster than anyone anticipated. The Thwaites Glacier famously is collapsing much faster. Professor Allen, of course, can speak much more at length about this. But this is important to understand. Because as all of this begins to collapse, it just gets warmer and warmer and warmer. And of course, as you all know, we've got to move much, much faster than we are moving right now. As of now, we are on track to hit 2.9 degrees centigrade global average mean temperature increase by 2100. I'm going to stop here for a second. Because this number 2.9 has to be understood properly. 2.9 degrees centigrade. This is global average mean temperature. This includes the oceans and it includes land. 2/3 of the planet is ocean. That means if global average mean temperature goes to 2.9 degrees centigrade, for the globe, land temperatures could well increase by 4 degrees centigrade. And 4 degrees centigrade across the board, I've already said that we're going to have mid-50s temperatures in northern India in 20 or 30 years. How is the world going to cope with this kind of climate change? It's a very serious issue. And therefore, we have no choice but to follow a net zero development model. The good news is, and this is the opportunity, I want to get away from the doom and gloom and talk about the trillions of dollars, Rano, that is going to be invested here. The net zero development model that India must follow, which we are already embarked on, is renewable energy for our power systems, electric vehicles across the board, which is what Professor Allen and Sanjay were talking about, various biofuels, green hydrogen, and we've got to integrate with the global carbon market and have carbon emissions trading. These are the 4 fundamental pillars of what a net zero development model has to be. Has to be for India's development. And this is not theory, folks. If you look at what China is doing today, China is already the world leader when it comes to green development. They have the most renewables, they have the most solar panels, they have the most electric vehicles, they're racing ahead of everyone literally. Even in robo-taxis, they are ahead of everyone. They're doing all kinds of interesting experiments with hydrogen hydrolyzers. And they've already rolled out a carbon emissions trading scheme. So China is already there. And the money and the effort and the policies that China has makes them a world leader when it comes to net zero development, green technologies. China has committed to net zero by 2060. Some people believe that their emissions have already peaked and that from now on, they're going to be decreasing their emissions. And they are by far the biggest emitter in the world now. Currently, just so you understand, the emissions trajectory for India is that we're going to go from 3.5 billion tons of greenhouse gas emissions to 14 billion tons by 2050. India's emissions are nowhere near peaking. In fact, they're increasing. So we've got to change that trajectory, folks. And net zero is net positive for India. Over the last 5 or 6 years, I have done extensive economic and climate modeling with some of the world's greatest modelers and experts and scientists on this. And what we found, and multiple people have run multiple models, what we found running all these models is net zero is massively net positive for India. When we look at it in terms of air pollution, Lancet and others have told us we're killing millions of people every year because of air pollution. We're going to bring down air pollution because we're going to have much cleaner air. GDP and jobs growth is going to be faster than any baseline projection. And of course, as far as energy security is concerned, we will not have to import this much in terms of fossil fuels. And remember, whom are we competing against? We're competing against China, we're competing against Japan, we're competing against Germany. So a green economy, friends, any one of you who's interested in business, a green economy is a competitive necessity for India and for the global south. We have to do this. Now, what's the catch? So net zero is net positive. Let's all go do it. Let's let it all happen tomorrow. But there is a catch. And this is where Ranu and his folks come in, which is it's going to cost a lot of money. We need a lot of financing. We need a lot of investment. And the models are telling us it's going to cost us trillions of dollars of incremental investment. That's good news because investments mean faster growth, more jobs. But it also means we need the money. And frankly, whether it's India or other countries in the global south, we don't have the capital. As it is, most of India's development on the margin is driven by foreign capital. So if we need more, trillions of dollars more, $50 to $100 billion a year more now, it's got to have to come from right here, from the city of London, from Oxford, from the global north, friends. And it has to go across the economy. This is, trust me, this is the only McKinsey chart in the deck. That's why you can't read it. Don't even bother. So it's going to have to transform the economy, but it's happening now. How many of you have flown into Bangalore Terminal 2? Do you love it? Yes. Don't you love it? This is the future. These are the kinds of facilities we will build if we think net zero. This is a net zero terminal. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, and it's green. We can do it, folks. We can do it. And when we do it working together, it's going to be a triple win. It's going to be a win for the planet, it's going to be a win for the global north, and it's going to be a win for the global south. We all have to work together to achieve this net zero development. And it's a win for the global north. Net zero is net positive for the global north because your investors are going to make money. Your companies are going to prosper. And we had, the Vice Chancellor of Innovation saying he wants $1 trillion company right here in Oxford. Maybe it's going to be a carbon capture company, Professor Allen. Right? So we can create these incredible companies. We can give better returns to the pensioners, to the investors of the global north, if we can funnel this capital to the global south and enable them to invest and earn returns. But we need to facilitate, and that's why I said that the global problems are so difficult. We need to facilitate the policy mechanisms, the blended finance instruments that will make these capital flows possible. And they need to happen. If you look at what is happening with migration around the world, which is huge political pressure, here in the UK and around Europe and in the US, immigration is such an important issue. A lot of what is happening is actually triggered by climate change. So it's in the interests of the global north to be able to make the global south prosperous so that we can deal with these kinds of humanitarian issues. Climate refugees are already making life very difficult in the global north. And so the global north must provide financial support. And this will have to come through the multilateral development banks, from the World Bank, the IFC, from the European Investment Bank, from the Asian Development Bank. We need these MDBs to be able to take capital which exists in abundance in the global north. And through these blended finance instruments, whether it's currency swaps, climate insurance, happy to go offline and discuss this in detail with you, because this is what I've been doing for the last 5 years, is to come up with these mechanisms by which we can get these blended finance instruments to work on behalf of global north investors. Their investments are protected and the cost of capital in the global south goes down, so the hurdle rates go down and we get more investments. That's what we need to do. And if we do that, for those of you who are investors, those of you who think about wealth creation, in the last 20 years in India, we've created about $3 trillion of wealth, because GDP to market cap has been roughly 1:1. Ranu, the best is yet to come. If we can sustain green growth and grow 6 to 7% a year, if we added $3 trillion of wealth, Ranu, is going to get very rich, folks. So I hope, Shumitru, you're going to hit on Ranu for some big donations here. So whatever you have right now, the next 20 years is going to be 4 times that. 4 times that. Because if you can sustain green growth, create inclusive and green growth for India, continue to grow at 6% a year, we are growing off a much larger base. $4 trillion is going to go to $16 trillion. That means $12 trillion of wealth creation. $12 trillion of wealth creation. Folks, Sandeep asked about where the opportunities are. Green is where the opportunities are. Green is going to be where you as entrepreneurs, business people, scientists, inventors are going to do really, really well. Net zero is net positive. Okay? So that's what we have for the economy. But this is for you as individuals as well. Too often when I talk about net zero, I hear people saying, why should I care? What can I do? Folks, this is affecting us every single day. And there's a lots that you can do. Everybody taking one step means a billion steps in India. So you can lead a much more frugal lifestyle, you can be much more vegan, you can use an electric vehicle. All of us can make a huge difference. We must make a huge difference. And particularly for young people, please, I beg you, for your future, don't check out. Pay attention. This is really, really serious, really, really important. You have to be the change. You have to be the change that you want to see in the world. You have to model this. You are the vanguard. You are the pioneers. You are the inventors. You are the entrepreneurs. You are going to have to make a difference. We've wrecked the economy. We've wrecked the world. I'm happy to be handing it over all to you so that you can fix all of this. Thank you very much. Yes, please. Yes, sure.
Thank you, sir. That was fascinating. You raised an important point about politics being local, but the challenge is not only to climate change, but a lot of others being global. With your experience in politics, I was just wondering, how does one address it? Because countries around the world are facing a trust deficit, a democratic deficit.
No, we don't need to make it so complicated. It's very simple. Politicians respond to the people. This is about people caring about these issues. And that's why I spend a lot of my time in front of audiences telling them they need to mobilize themselves. This is affecting your life now, right? So if you speak up, if you're out in the streets, if you're talking about it, all of us as politicians will prioritize it.
It was not on our manifestos in Indian democracy.
No. All the manifestos talked about green and talked about climate change, but it has to be a higher priority. To be a higher priority, you all have to get involved. Please.
Good afternoon. I just wanted to ask you, what do you think are India's chances of achieving its net zero 2070 target? And the second question is, what kind of policy changes that you would like to see from the top to help us achieve?
So I think we'll
that?
definitely get there. And the reason we are going to get there is because technologies now are there. And the good news is that net zero is net positive. We don't need, frankly, too much from a policy point of view. We've already done a lot. Of course, there are many things more that we can do. But right now, the most important thing is we need business models that make money. And the good news is there are many business models that if we just invest in right now for the next 10 years, will make money and cut carbon emissions. So not to worry. Let's just get to work. Yes, the lady there.
So yeah, I'm the chair of the Dance School Green Group in Oxford, and we have done quite a lot. And individual actions does matter, and it really have a positive impact. So I've got this bug. I don't think many people they're still using the same thing. So yes, it is the individual who can make the difference. And basically, yeah, you start something, and that would really help us a lot.
No, you're absolutely right. I agree with you. I am feeling a little bit of shame because I flew in from Delhi. But sometimes, a little bit of carbon emissions can actually reduce a lot. So hopefully you'll make up what I did by flying in from Delhi.
We'll probably take around and do a lot of meetings before just coming for this one. I mean, go on holiday as well. If you go somewhere, try to make use of it if you're here. But definitely individual actions does matter, and it is from you. It has to start. Start like maybe just like clothes also. I mean, food also. Why to waste food waste? Why to like throw the clothes? You can still exchange it, clothes swap, or use the one from your family. I mean, it is much cheaper to be sustainable, and you don't have to do a lot definitely. And if you do it, then your people will also listen. All the politicians will also listen. And definitely if I need to travel by train, I need a good trains and everything. But definitely they have to be done by them. And this is
Thank you. Other questions? Yes.
Thank you very much for the excellent presentation. I'm a postdoctoral researcher in physics in this university, and I work on perovskite photovoltaics, what the professor mentioned is one of the new technologies for solarization. And I see a lot of efforts being made in India for solarizing homes, Make in India, manufacturing. But what I fail to see is, you mentioned about China, right? So there's a lot of trust in manufacturing. But in India, when are we going to put our trust in inventing, not only make in India, but research in India, invent in India?
Why don't you come to India and invent? So the answer, look, we can't always be pointing fingers at others. This is one of those situations where we individually have to take responsibility in terms of our actions and in terms of the kinds of businesses and efforts that we undertake. It really is incumbent upon us. So be the change you want to see. We all have to play a role in this. There is a lot happening. It's not that there's not a lot happening. There's a tremendous amount already happening in India. Certainly, we have challenges when it comes to manufacturing competitiveness against other countries, but the government is seized of the matter. We are taking many important policy steps. But most importantly, we need our entrepreneurs, our scientists, our inventors to really participate in all of this. And if all of you do it, I'm sure we can make tremendous progress. But again, remember, we already have enough there for the next 10 years that's ready to go. We just have to put our shoulder to the wheel, develop these business models and accelerate their scaling up. Yes, please.
So, huge believer of this. And to the extent I'm an institutional investor out of Dubai, we are putting a climate fund in India. But very recently, I read the news, and I'm sure you also you must have read, US funds had the worst ever quarter on ESG product. With all this, such a gravity of situation, how a common person should relate to this? That is it a fad? Is it something? Because on one hand, we are talking about this gravity, and on the other hand, countries like US, which are considered to be sort of our leaders in this.
No, that's a great question. But I don't believe that we've got to think of this as ESG. So ESG becomes something that people feel like, okay, we have to lower returns or take on more risk to be able to do something that is good for society. No, make money. I want you to go out and invest in a $1 trillion company. I actually happen to believe from a business point of view, and I say this as an investor, I think green companies are going to do incredibly well and make a lot of money. So that's why let's not treat it as an ESG opportunity. Let's treat it as a legitimate, massive business opportunity. And the moment we get the best brains and the best talent to work on it, we will create those $1 trillion companies that will do carbon capture, that will create new battery chemistries, that will find new biofuels. It'll happen. We just have to put our ingenuity to work. If we can solve a problem like artificial intelligence, which is such a hard problem, you heard Rohan Murthy talk about it, why can't we solve these problems? I'm an engineer. I think it's solvable.
Thank you, Minister, sir, for the presentation. I sort of approach, as a climate finance professional myself, I approach it slightly differently. While I think we're on the same page that adaptation, climate transition will largely be addressed with the financing that is coming and continuing to move through. But don't you think the policy today in India is quite silent on mitigation, on adaptation measures and ensuring that any of the damages, you've seen floods in Himachal Pradesh, for example, and the heat temperatures that you talked about, we're not hearing not much on strategy in that respect. And how do you make sure that you have financeable models to address real climate adaptation issues, which will address a larger population, in my opinion, than transition efforts in the aspects that you talked about?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. Much of what I have talked about is actually mitigation, that is decarbonization, particularly in the private sector. That's largely what I have spoken about. You brought up a different set of issues, which is adaptation with government support, and that is public finance. That's a very difficult and complicated set of problems. Of course, there's a lot of effort underway there as well, but it's not going as fast and as well as we would like. A lot of the social security programs that are in India right now, a Narega, for example, or the Kisan Samman Nidhi, which is to provide 6,000 rupees a year to farmers, a lot of that effectively ends up becoming insurance against the vagaries of agricultural production, much of which is influenced by climate change. So indirectly, yes, we are approaching it. There's a lot more to be done, but adaptation is a very serious issue for India, which we need to do a lot more on. I agree with that. Yes, sir, behind, right. And will the organizers just tell me when we should go to the last question? Anyone?
So,
last question. All right, sir, last question.
Good afternoon, and thank you for that. It's really wonderful to hear this. I think most of us are closet environmentalists. We keep trying not to take a second bag and do our bit.
It's time to come out. You don't need to be in the closet anymore.
But one of the greatest problems of the earth is how we're gobbling it up with growth. And we're keeping on this growth model built by 17th, 18th century economists that growth is the answer rather than efficiency. Are we ever going to go back to Mr. Mahatma Gandhi's statements that smaller is better and more efficient is more beautiful? Or is that always going to be a growth model where we grow and gobble up our planet and the answer will be in money and more money rather than in law reform that makes us a little tighter on the pocket and manages to save the environment in the process?
So I think the way in which you practice your lifestyle and the choices you make as far as your lifestyle is concerned are very individual, and everybody is free, of course, to pick whatever lifestyle they want. But I'm fundamentally, as you've already seen, I'm sure, a techno-optimist. And I believe that we can use technology to find solutions to some of the limits to growth that we are finding right now. I think we will solve carbon capture because I think 50 or 60 years from now, energy might well be free. Because I, for one, happen to believe that nuclear fusion is going to happen in 30 years. If nuclear fusion happens, energy is effectively going to be free. If energy is free, we'll do carbon capture and we'll prevent runaway carbon emissions, etc. So I think we will find technology solutions, which is why I believe net zero is net positive, and that will give everybody, the freedom to practice whatever lifestyle they want. I happen to believe that it's good to be frugal and more vegan and everything else, but if others want to do other things, I think within our framework of democracy and human liberty, everybody is free to do whatever they want within whatever societal parameters we can all agree upon. So again, as I said, just to conclude, because I've been told that it's time for lunch, all of you are running out the door, so I won't hold you any longer. But like I said, net zero is net positive, but we've got to really, really work towards making that happen. Thank you so much.